Alrighty, everyone, what is going on? And welcome to Season 2's finale of I Screen, You Scream for movies. Yes, you all just heard me. This episode is the Season 2 finale of this podcast, and we are finally approaching to 2024. Though I'm not going to lie, I may not be ready for a whole new year ahead, but trust me though, I am indeed ready for the next wave of films coming up in my movie-going hobbies this coming year. And to make things even more exciting as well, I will continue this podcast with Season 3. In today's final episode, it is recorded for Sunday, December 31st. And y'all know I'm doing this on a fucking raw feed. Let's go ahead and begin this session. My name's Danny Escamilaggi, the host of this podcast. And so to kick this episode off, like I said, we are approaching 2024, and as of 2023 is coming to an end, it is time for me to do what every movie content creators will do at every end of year, and that is listing my top 10 favorite films of 2023. And to quickly brief this year, 2023, I will honestly be divided and say the first two quarters of this year's movies were spectacularly hype as ever. But then, the rest of the two quarters of 2023 this year were mid at best. So I'm talking early spring, early summer, full summer, but then fall and winter kind of gives the iffy on like movies for me. But also on top of that, you got the SAG-AFTRA strike, which kind of affected my content for fall, winter overall. And it kind of killed my hype, even that they delayed Dune Part 2, which is like my second most anticipated. And I won't stop rambling on Dune because Dune is Dune. So I just felt a little annoyed that this movie got delayed. But I think 2024 seems like the right call. And I think now the strike's over, it seems like it's going to finally come out. And at the right timing is going to be better than before. But other than that, 2023 wasn't the year that lived to be the hype, except the first two quarters, like I said. But then the rest of the quarters of the year, of this year's movies, were just slim at best than 2022. And 2022 is a completely different year, where a lot of the movies were so great, and a lot of them were amazing. But 2023 had its first moments in the first two quarters of the year, but then the third and fourth quarters of fall and winter doesn't live to be the expectation. So other than that, it was still a great year, but then wasn't strong than implicated than anything, really. So I got nothing else to pretty much even put out. But again, 2023 was an alright year. Movies were great. Some were just not there. The strike even affected my content. And, you know, we all thought the strike will go on and on to further next year. But thank God, hallelujah, it just ended last month. And we're now approaching to, for sure, a great year. But then we might have a slim shot of movies that were meant to be supposed to come out, especially that the productions were affected. So some movies like Venom, Deadpool, etc. could end up getting delayed. But we will see how much Godspeed that these production movies would get this filming done. So, like I said, we are discussing my top 10 films of 2023 that I officially placed, and it wasn't even easy because there were a lot of good movies and some surprising ones that I picked, and some I hope you all don't just judge me on it depending what picks I just actually placed on my top 10. No matter if it's even one of the best movies or not. But you all may be lucky to hear my top 10. And then I will even post about it on my Twitter, which my Twitter is in the description of the show notes of this podcast episode, if you want to follow me on Twitter for more info on my tweets. But other than that, without further ado, time to begin my top 10 films of 2023. Starting now, here we go. Let's begin. So I'm going to be going from top 10 to all the way down to first. So, number 10, actually a surprising one, and I adored a lot of this sequel since the last year's movie I began this podcast, and surprisingly lived up to be the expectations of this film's franchise. And unfortunately, it's going down the wire because of controversial situation. So it's damning to see this franchise go bad again in terms of Melissa Barrera being fired over something supportive, and then Jenna Ortega has dropped out in favor of Melissa's unfair firing. And Christopher Landon even dropped out to directing this next sequel. So without further ado, let's put this off aside and say my first 10 film of 2023 was Scream 6. I love this movie, guys. As not a huge horror guy, I find Scream really enjoyable. And Scream 6 happened to land my number 10th film of the year. And surprisingly, fun, gorier, and amazing cast to the returns. Especially they were memorable ones. Now, unfortunately, Neve Campbell did not came back due to salary issues. But regardless of her not returning, the two directors known as Radio Silence, Matt Oakland and Tyler Gillett, managed to cook this franchise and to cook this sequel to be a higher on a standard, on a platter. Just managed to make this movie surprisingly good. And to my surprise of how sequels will really just go from like top to bottom, they managed to keep this fresh as ever. And they done a good job of keeping this up. And again, it's so sad to see where this franchise is going due to controversial issues going on with the firing of Melissa Barrera and everything. So I can't speak on their behalf, but it's fucking wrong, I will say. It's really stupid what Spyglass and Paramount really did this franchise to its core. They were doing a great job, and then all of a sudden, they fumbled it with the firing. Again, don't want to go too much into this, but it's unfortunate. And I really adore this 6th Scream movie. And God knows what will happen to this franchise. All I'm going to say is just to end the franchise. I think the 6th Scream movie was a perfect way to end this. And I don't think they should have continued this on, especially with the issue going on. So, other than that, we will see what happens. I got nothing much to even discuss, but Scream 6 managed to surprisingly slash its way into my top 10 films of 2023. So there you have it. That's the start of my top 10. Scream 6 is my number 10th film. Number 9 of my top 10, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. One if not the funnest movie of all 2023 this year. Surprisingly enjoyable. I'm not even a Dungeons & Dragons dude or a fan, but they managed to make this movie so fun and enjoyable for all people to see and check out. The word of mouth is even great for this movie on top of that. You have an amazing cast: Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Regé-Jean Page, Justin Smith, Sophia Lillis. But the one that steals a lot of the show is Hugh Grant. I love Hugh Grant no matter what movies he's in. He steals a lot. I thought he was great as a villain. But other than that, the movie is so fun. The visuals are great. The characters are great. And the story was great. It's really enjoyable from start to finish. And I haven't even complained one bit on this movie. It's so fun. They managed to make this movie just so enjoyable from start to finish that it wasn't even that hard to watch and understood on top of that. And even you don't gotta play, you don't even gotta be a Dungeons and Dragons fan to understand. You just still will understand the story at least and to understand the characters. And I thought the chemistry of this cast is also great as well. And they're all fun. Even Chris Pine, I'm surprised to see him do well for this movie. I thought he was enjoyable start to finish, like I said. Now, unfortunate thing to even put out there, the movie's box office did not live to be what people expected. It's because Paramount Pictures chose to put this before the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and the word of mouth on this just got dragged by a bigger IP than normal. So Paramount Pictures really fumbled this kind of movies to its release. And just because they have a dominant year in 2022 doesn't mean they can dominate against big IPs like Mario. So that's lesson learned. And on top of that, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning had its issues as well. The release date was not good when it gets Barbenheimer, and that's unfortunate. So in this case, Dungeons & Dragons, a film like that, should avoid a release that drags down completely from a bigger IP. But Dungeons and Dragons, regardless, bomb or not, still managed to land in my top 10. And I'm honored to even put this as my number 9th film. Credible, fun, tastic film. I ever enjoy it. Of all movies I had fun with, Dungeons and Dragons was pretty rad. So number 9 is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Number 8, another surprising fun film. And a bigger IP, I guess, if you want to say it's bigger than Dungeons and Dragons. But my number 8th film, Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Now, I completely always doubt the Transformers ever since the Michael Bay movies were complete shit. But this time, with him being producer now since Bumblebee, and of course him coming back to produce, but unlike him not taking over as a director, Stephen Caple Jr. directed this installment, and it's a prequel, of course, to the Bay movies, for sure, and a follow-up to Bumblebee. So Transformers: Rise of the Beast, other than that, was a well-done, fantastic film that managed to restore some of the redeeming qualities of what a Transformers movie should have been back in the Bay movies. I thought it was light, enjoyable, and I will say, just to now speak the ending of it, the G.I. Joe crossover may sounded hype, but then it probably wasn't a good idea for the best of it. So, other than that, I still had fun with this movie. The action was fun. The cast were great. I thought the human cast in this movie were pretty alright. And they're nothing too bad or nothing too stereotypical. And shout out to Pete Davidson. He stole the show as Mirage. I can't forget this guy. I thought he was amazing. Michelle Yeoh also steals good as Airazor. Also a fun character. But other than that, Pete Cullen is always a great Optimus Prime. And I'm hoping he continues on if they ever make another one. But probably without the G.I. Joe, we'll see what happens. But even though it already just happened, we don't know where this goes. But regardless, I thought Transformers: Rise of the Beast was a fun movie. I loved it. It's actually one of my favorite films that I managed to honor this film as on my top 10. And it still managed to just be enjoyable. Even I haven't seen it in a long time, I will say the most memorable I just enjoyed was the third act. The third act was awesome. Also, the soundtrack was incredible. Hip-hop, 1980s shit. I mean, they went all out with the soundtrack with this movie, too. That's for sure. Thought it was incredible. Thought it was pretty fun. Transformers just managed to restore once again, and we hope to see that stuff like this in the future. Even we got an animated movie coming up next year. We'll hope to see where this goes. But Transformers: Rise of the Beast is my number 8th film of 2023. Number 7. So honored to put this on my top 10. Godzilla Minus One. I have not forgot how honorable and how satisfying to see a better kaiju franchise like Godzilla to have another Toho reboot movie that managed to be so superior than all the other Toho Godzilla movies to date. I have my review out for my last episode. If anyone wants to check it out, Godzilla Minus One surprised the shit out of me. Especially, I'm not a Japanese Godzilla dude, but from the word of mouth to this movie and me as a Godzilla fan, I had to check it out. And look at that film. Everything was top-notch, incredible. The human cast were great. The characters were awesome. The story was great. Godzilla's design was amazing. And yeah, this film may not be a lot of Godzilla, but it still has redeeming qualities of what the monster movies couldn't offer. And they still provide a very well-studied, amazing cast and characters. The character humans are the most irrelevant to the MonsterVerse, but then this type of Godzilla movie, they done a good job. And there's nothing much else to speak on, but Godzilla Minus One is an honor to land in my top 10 and was enjoyable. Start to finish. I could just almost not watch it again and just thinking about it. Who knows if I'll watch it again in the future if I wanted to get the feel. But probably watching some memorable scenes is probably the best way to go if I wanted to enjoy this movie. But other than that, Godzilla Minus One is in my number 7 film of 2023. Now, number 6. When it comes to superhero movies, this year's superhero movies have been a bad hit and run case. And a lot of them failed to redeem quality, redeem its enjoyableness to general audiences, and letdowns to fans, particularly the MCU and the DCEU fans. But even one movie managed to stand still out of all of them. One MCU movie is only so good and can never be forgotten, and everyone, I'm so damn sure, is putting them in their top 5, top 10. And this is a film that this director never fucking fumbles one bit. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is in my number 6 film. James Gunn has done it again. People didn't believe that he would do it again with the first superhero movie of the year, which was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, fumbling, then Shazam 2. Then there was skepticism on Guardians 3 if this was going to be a good movie or not. But when the word came out, James Gunn never meant to doubt. He is never meant to be doubted. And he's now taken over DC. DCU begins in 2025. And I'm excited to see what he can do for what he does with the Guardians, especially his relationship to Kevin Feige, to making DCU a better place with better timeline and better relevant stories. I cannot wait to see what he can do, especially his next movie is Superman Legacy, which doesn't come out to 2025, which kicks off DCU. And we will see where it goes. So far, I am always high on this guy, and I never stop believing him till the day this gets proven. But for now, let me just elaborate Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It is enjoyable, start to finish. Emotional from start to finish. Just an amazing way to close doors and books on these amazing, well-known, likable Marvel Cinematic Universe characters. The Guardians of the Galaxy are yet to never be forgotten, no matter whose face will be on there. All the cast, especially from the returning previous movies, were awesome. And out of all that characters in this movie that gets the highlight, I love Bradley Cooper as Rocket. I love this guy as Rocket. Doesn't disappoint like every movie he's in. And the characters, like I said, all well, all chemistry, very fun, and great. I just love how James Gunn never fumbles these type of movies. And that is why he's one of the hottest comic book filmmakers of known to man. And this time, DCU is going to be another best place to where he controls all quality and insurance. So we will see where this goes. Guardians of the Galaxy almost had me teared up in some scenes. And to completely be on the side, man, it was dark for this movie. It was like enough for people to cry at this point, where I never barely cry, but then the heart would matter to the point where how you feel gets you to the best of the emotion. James Gunn did an amazing job with this movie. Never to be forgotten. This is one of the onlyest comic book movies of this year. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is in my number 6 film of 2023. And we're down to the final 5 of my top 10. Number 5, a surprising one, and I could not forget this movie, especially as a fan. And one of the biggest IPs anyone knows well. The Super Mario Brothers movie. That movie, as a fan, filled my heart with joy. And for video game adaptations, they became on the rise more than ever. Starting with Mario this year. We had Sonic last year, we had Uncharted last year, and other adaptations that were TV shows. Can't think of the ones off the top of my head, but movies are the ones to never be forgotten, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie was one of them. I was very skeptic on this movie way before I started my show, but then really stood out surprisingly. Even Chris Pratt had to give him benefit of doubt to say he did an amazing job. All the other casts were great. Jack Black, though, steals the scene as Bowser. I think he was the best among all the cast. On top of that, the animation by elimination were awesome. Visually beautiful, incredible. Just every design look of these characters and the world. And there's a lot of Easter eggs. This kind of feels like an actual Mario movie and not an elimination movie. That's how I feel, and it managed to wow me with such poise. I can't even brag on how this movie managed to really won me over and surprise me and shocked me in many ways. That was one of the, not entirely, now I will say the issue is the pacing. The pacing was too quick with this movie. Could have been more long, could have been more developed, but I get it, it's elimination. They're trying to make this short for kids to enjoy, but they will have to fix this to make sure all characters were just well developed if they're going to continue the franchise, which they will. Can't wait to see what they do with the sequel, and we will see where it goes. And one more thing to throw out, I even predicted that this type of movie would make $1 billion, and it did. This aged so well, I even made a prediction on Twitter, and I even made a prediction to the BO boys. Boys, if you're listening to this, I literally called this movie would make $1 billion because it's a fucking IP. No matter how ignored Elimination and studios are, this IP is the reason why Elimination has another $1 billion, and it never had a $1 billion movie since Despicable Me 3. And now, we might get to see that with another Elimination next year with Despicable Me 4. But we shall see. Even Minions Rise of Gru almost made $1 billion. And let's quickly give a shout out to Universal Pictures real quick. They're having a banging year. Hit after hit after hit after hit. Like Paramount Pictures last year in 2022 with Top Gun Maverick as $1 billion. And Universal has $1 billion winner with the Super Mario Bros. Movie. And never to be forgotten, they had an amazing year of content. So we shall see if they're going to continue the streak later next year. But never be forgotten, Universal is the winner in my books of 2023 of winning over numbers of quality movies they got. With the exception of Five Nights at Freddy's, which actually it counts to be a video game because fans came out to see the movie and was a big hit regardless of the word of mouth. But other than that, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, to cap this off, is in my number 5th film of 2023. And guys, I'm ready to get down to number 4 because we have another surprising movie. And it was in my top 10, sitting on my number 7 film of my most anticipated movies, if this was going to be a hit or miss. So, this movie, sadly, got striked by the SAG-AFTRA strike and could have done more domestic business. And it's sad for me to see just to rave about it even more because I never forgot how awesome this movie is. And you don't gotta be a fan of this franchise because it's also based on a true story, which they did a good job. Number 4, Gran Turismo. And like I said, it's a true story of Yane Marlboro and the GT Academy with Gran Turismo Easter egg elements. Now, you don't gotta be a fan. This is enjoyable for everyone. This movie even got an A cinema score, but at the same time, the awareness wasn't strong, like I said, because of strike. Kinda was unfortunate. So to quickly put this out of my quick thoughts to Gran Turismo, it was an amazing movie. I thought the cast were great. Neil Blomkamp, with his comeback from District 9, did an amazing job directing this movie. The racing sequences were awesome. Cinematography was great. The emotional story was there. And it just feels like an actual movie that you don't gotta, understand what Gran Turismo is. Because, again, it's a true story film with video game vibe elements. So it's technically enjoyable for all people to watch. And man, that was the last movie I saw before me taking a break from the movies when the strike happened. And another example of a video game adaptation like this just keeps on bringing the goods. And that is why Gran Turismo is in my number 4th film. And I kind of place it over to Super Mario because in terms of like quality of like pacing and all, I thought it was well told. And it was tough for me to put between Mario and Gran Turismo when they both managed to win my top 10 of the year. And I wasn't kidding about Gran Turismo being a surprise top 10 film in my contending year. And Gran Turismo managed to just win it all across the finish line over the top 5. So Gran Turismo is my number 4th film of 2023. And now, down to the final top 3. And boy, it is neck and neck which ones managed to land in my top 3 of the year. So, as I'm about to tell my number 3rd film of the year, let me get myself a drum roll. Number 3, Oppenheimer. This is a surprising one. I'm not a biopic person or a fan of like long movies without hype anticipation. But for a Barbenheimer effect and Christopher Nolan that came off with a bad, shitty movie in COVID times, managed to bring his comeback to making a better made film that isn't confusing or time confusing or any kind of complexity. This is based on a true event of James Robert Oppenheimer and the atomic bomb. And on top of that, of this movie, as Christopher Nolan, he tends to make just incredible sound, incredible tense thrills and visuals. And that's why this movie managed to land in my top 3 in 3rd place. And I will only say my only complaint is just how long this movie is. And I'm not having issues with like all humans in this movie. I thought all the human parts that relate to the story were great. So many cast members. Let's just say A-list to B-list stars. Like Cillian Murphy as like the lead role, Oppenheimer, of course. Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robbie Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, Josh Hartnett, Casey Affleck, Rami Malek, Kenneth Branagh. A lot of these... Oh, and Josh Peck. Just insane amount of stars. That is never forgettable. Whatever they're in one scene or not, that's what's enjoyable. So Christopher Nolan just collabed with so many people on this and managed to make a film like this that was enjoyable in such prospect accuracy of James Robert Oppenheimer. What an amazing, astonishing film. And the Barbenheimer was amazing that weekend. I even went to see both the movies in separate days, Barbie and Oppenheimer. But if I was a guy who would pick which one would be my favorite, I honestly thought Barbie was awesome and enjoyable. But I'm more of an Oppenheimer guy who I think this movie managed to land cool things of my expectations for this movie, and it just blew me away with such. And if it wasn't for Christopher Nolan who did this movie, and this movie had nothing to provide, I would have not just seen it. Period. Christopher Nolan brought it back with Oppenheimer on the win for the Oscars, and I could potentially root it for win Best Picture. You know, I'm rooting for some of them awards coming on the next Oscars, but we will see where this happens. Oppenheimer is in my number 3 film of 2023, to leave it on that note. And number 2, if not one of the most incredible action piece set movies. And this franchise just doesn't stop getting staled, and it gets better and better and better and better. And that action franchise is not The Expendables, though I would be kidding if I tell you it would be Expendables 4. Fuck no. That ain't Expendables. And that's not Mission Impossible, because I did say Top Gun Maverick is better than Mission Impossible. but the greatest action set piece of the year, and I wish it was even nominated or listed as one of the best movies of the year, which was bullshit. John Wick, Chapter 4. Man, that movie rocked every single pace. What an amazing action film. And one of the greatest action movies of all time. That has to be on the record. And John Wick is probably one of the best action movies of the franchises yet to come. This movie completely wowed me in such amazing choreography, fight actions, gun foos, cinematography, production values, great cast. Keanu Reeves still got it. Donnie Yen also completely steals. And man, just so many casts. Like, enjoyable start to finish. And just how this movie ended, we could see a fourth movie if Chad Stahelski comes back and does it. And for now, we're getting a spin-off movie coming out next year, which stars Ana de Armas, relating to a character from John Wick Chapter 3. That is exciting to see how this John Wick franchise will hold and see where it goes. Now we're getting a female-led spin-off John Wick movie. This is going to be one awesome moment next year to see how it stands out. And my expectation is to just see how credible and amazing this movie will be. And by the way, it's called Ballerina. Ballerina is a spin-off to the John Wick's franchise as a spin-off. So my expectations is just to be crystal clear as like the fourth John Wick movie. And damn, I may say it was tough to pick this movie to be in my top 10, but at the end of the day, it was so satisfying, start to finish. Number 2 of my year is John Wick Chapter 4. What a movie. Yeah. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're down to the final number 1 movie of the year. Now, if just to quickly elab this, it would be another movie before my number 1 movie. If Dune Part 2 came out, would have been my number 1 movie, but got delayed from the strike. So, after thinking, out of all movies I really enjoyed, that's the best, I have to go with this movie in my number 1 column of 2023. And did I just say Guardians of the Galaxy was one of the greatest, only best Marvel movie of the year? Did I say The Flash? No, actually, I take that back on The Flash. It fucking sucks. Just wasting my time and opportunity of a hype movie that turned out to be nothing. I'm sorry. I may liked it on my episode of my podcast, but it just doesn't age well. I saw Blue Beetle was a great start, but still left iffy. I thought Shazam 2 was okay, but you know what? And I didn't see Aquaman 2. Fuck that. Number 1, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. There you go. I said it. What a movie to never forget. The first movie, I did see it. Amazing. Part 2 of this movie. Amazing. God, the animation rocked. The wait was so damn worth it. Even made twice the money. Made nearly $700 million worldwide. Well loved. It wasn't an A+ because, well, it's a part 1 of the Spider-Verse, technically. This is like going to be part 3 the next, but part 2 is like, the Spider-Verse movies are like the 3-set trilogy. But regardless, Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse is one astonishing, amazing anime movie of all time. This has got to be a contender of like best animated feature, and I'm rooting to see it get nominated for Best Picture, because that is a big question. I hope it lands to that, and I'm hoping to see where it stands. The voice casts were awesome. Out of all the casts, I thought Daniel Kaluuya was great. and the best. And I thought Oscar Isaac was a surprising one in this movie. Shemek Moore, Haley Steinfeld, and amazing voice work, amazing emotional story, amazing set of Miles Morales that we never get to see before, where it takes off. And I'm hoping we get a live action of Miles Morales. But other than that, right now, we get to see him in an anime movie and see a bunch of Spider-Man variants of the world of Spider-Verse. Like, it's incredible. No matter how much Easter egg it provides, the movie still tells very well. It's one of the hypest movies of the year that it got really big. And I went to see it twice. That was never to be forgotten how much I enjoy this movie. And I was going to almost watch it again at home, but I just couldn't because the big screen is why I want to go to the movies for this opportunity and see it either once or twice again. And Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse was one of the pitch perfect movies that I can't say what else will top that movie. It's even an anime movie. And my number one movie last year was Top Gun Maverick. I can feel like Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse is that Top Gun Maverick. It almost clarified my expectations. Even me enjoying this movie, my heart was pumping to the fullest around the second act all the way to the third act. Like, man, it sucks we have to wait for part 3, but man, I'm so ready for part 3. And now the strike's even over. They can just take their time with this movie and not give too much pressure. And heck, it doesn't have to come out next year for all I care. I don't mind just waiting until like 2025, 2026. Just take your time, Sony Pictures, Sony Animations, and make part 3 such worth hype. One more thing to note, I highly, out of all the films in my list, that no one may have to agree with me or not, out of all the films this year, I truly recommend a lot, even for those that aren't Spider-Man fans. I really recommend this movie a lot more than ever out of all the year. And shout out to, also, to prove that as well, the American Film Institute also listed Across the Spider-Verse as their top 10 films of the year. With that validation proven point, this film will please you a lot more than ever. No other way, but I highly recommend Across the Spider-Verse out of all 2023 films. And it's even available on Netflix for those that haven't seen it yet. But of course, you haven't seen the first part as well. Might as well look at it because it does follow up with the first movie. Couldn't recommend Across the Spider-Verse enough to anyone listening to this. All right. I can't say nothing else, and I have nothing else to even speak on this movie. It is my number one movie of the year, managed to win, and heart sold everything. It checked all my boxes off for my expectations. Great characters, great story, world building, all that. Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse is my number one movie of 2023. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I'll quickly say all my top 10 films from 10 to not 1. Number 10, Scream 6. Number 9, Dungeons & Dragons. Number 8, Transformers. Number 7, Godzilla. Number 6, Guardians. Number 5, Super Mario movie. Number 4, Gran Turismo. Number 3, Oppenheimer. Number 2, John Wick 4. And number 1, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So, most of my top 10s, except for Godzilla Minus One, were all from the first 2 quarters of 2023. And Godzilla Minus One is like the only movie that I enjoyed getting back to with a few movies to see left of fourth quarter of 2023. So, it was a great year for movies. But then, like I said earlier in the episode, just got lopsided by the strike. Kind of killed my hype. And quality-wise, box office-wise, hasn't been this tremendously big. We did get a few hits, though, here and then, but just nowhere to be exciting. And Dune Part 2 would have been the satisfying moment of that year. Of the third and fourth quarter for fall, winter movies. Other than that, 2024 is finally approaching No way, no words to describe what's next and what's to come. I'm ready for 2024. Let this be ready. And now I got through this episode so efficiently. It's like, bring on 2024. I'm already ready for New Year's Eve. So let this be known. 2024 is going to be a bounce back, and hopefully we'll see where it goes. Now, just to quickly put it out, depending on some films that are shooting and manage to get it done or not, we might get a light year of 2024 movies because of the strike that affected some movies that were supposed to come out even next year, but probably got pushed. But we will see where it stands, and we will see how it goes for 2024 movies. And to quickly brief, next year, we got a lot of IP sequels, prequels, you name it, all over next year. And I feel like it's going to get even big with these movies, whatever their hits or misses. But all one thing to be sure, we got to watch out for comic book superhero movies next year, especially they've been on a bad roll of quality. I can tell Madam Web, which I might see this movie or not, is going to be a very good example of why superheroes never meant to be kicking off a blockbuster. So, we will see where it goes. Other than that, 2024 seems to be a hype year of all, and I cannot wait to embrace it all with season 3 of my podcast. I screened, you screen for movies, and I'm for sure having a bounce back. Cannot wait to get things going with season 3 of this show. With that said, I hope you all enjoyed my top 10 films of 2023. Thank you for all that listened to this episode. If you made it to the end, if you want to stick and stay with my content, you're not too late. Season 3 will be getting started in the next couple months. So, all you can do to support this podcast, follow and subscribe to wherever you're listening on. And if you're not listening on Apple Podcasts, I want you to click on the link of the show notes of my Apple Podcast. And if you are only enjoying my show, go to the Apple Podcast platform and leave me a 5-star review. Doesn't take too long. Just put 5 stars and just say, love this man, love the optimism, enjoy the show, blah, blah, blah. Whatever something nice comes in your head, just 5-star this podcast. Love to see some 5 stars going up, and season 3 is just going to get even hype with what I got in stores for this podcast and my movie going hype anticipation. Follow me on my social media platforms, Twitter and TikTok. They'll both be in the show notes available. And my YouTube channel may not be all that big, but as I'm about to have more guests in the future of this podcast, it's a reason why you should subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see guests and myself, what we look like as we talk on movies. The YouTube channel will always be in the description of the show notes if you want to follow and subscribe there. And if you're listening this on YouTube, which is you're listening the audiogram of this version of this episode, comment, like, and subscribe if you are enjoying this series. With that said, as I'm about to wrap this episode, Happy New Year 2024. Pray to be in a miracle year full of movie, content, entertainment for all fans to embrace. Cannot wait to see what in store is for us, and we shall pray for the happy moments and greatly year of 2024. As I'm about to wrap this up, I will see you all in the next season of I Screen, You Scream, 4 movies, and Happy New Year, everybody. Good night.